The afternoon sun blazed down on the quiet suburban street, casting long shadows over manicured lawns and neatly trimmed hedges. The neighborhood, usually serene, seemed unnaturally still, save for the distant hum of a lawnmower. It was the kind of place where strangers stood out, and that was exactly why Sergeant Adams noticed the silver luxury sedan parked near the corner. Adams sat in his patrol car, watching the vehicle with narrowed eyes. His gut told him something was off. "What's a car like that doing here?" he muttered, his fingers drumming on the steering wheel. His partner, Officer Thompson, sat beside him, flipping through his notebook, but he looked up at Adams' tone. "You think it's stolen?" Thompson asked, his voice tinged with uncertainty. It was only his 3rd month on the job, and he was still learning to trust his instincts. "Maybe," Adams replied, his gaze locked on the car. "Or maybe something worse." Without further discussion, Adams started the car and pulled up alongside the sedan. A man stood next to the car, calmly sipping a coffee, his posture relaxed and unbothered. He wore a tailored navy suit, his presence out of place against the suburban backdrop. He didn't look startled as Adams approached, his calm demeanor unsettling in itself. Adams stepped out of the patrol car, his boots crunching on the gravel. "Afternoon," he said, his tone firm. "Can I see some ID?" The man raised an eyebrow but didn't hesitate. He reached into his jacket, pulling out a wallet and handing over his identification. "Is there a problem, Sergeant?" His voice was smooth, untroubled. Adams took the ID, scanning it quickly. "Dr. Michael Carter, huh? What brings you to this neighborhood, Doctor?" "Visiting a friend," Dr. Carter answered, his expression unreadable. "Is that an issue?" Adams' eyes flicked to the luxury sedan, then back to Dr. Carter. "A car like that in a place like this stands out," he said, his voice edged with suspicion. "Out-of-state plates, too. Seems a bit unusual." Thompson shifted uncomfortably, sensing the tension rising. He glanced at Dr. Carter, who remained composed, and then back at Adams. "Maybe we should check if his story checks out," Thompson suggested cautiously. Adams ignored him, his focus solely on Dr. Carter. "You mind telling me where exactly you're visiting?" he pressed. Dr. Carter's gaze didn't waver. "I don't see how that's relevant, Sergeant." "I've done nothing wrong." Adams' jaw tightened. He didn't like being challenged. "I'll decide what's relevant," he snapped. "Turn around and put your hands behind your back." "What?" Thompson blurted, his eyes widening. "Wait, Sergeant, isn't that a bit?" "Quiet, Thompson," Adams cut him off. "This is procedure." Dr. Carter sighed but complied, turning slowly. "You're making a mistake, Sergeant," he said calmly. "A mistake bigger than you can imagine." Adams cuffed Dr. Carter and guided him toward the patrol car. Thompson followed, his heart pounding. Something about this didn't feel right, but Adams' authority left little room for protest. Back at the station, the atmosphere was tense. Adams marched Dr. Carter through the precinct, his expression smug. "Got a suspicious character here," he announced loudly, drawing the attention of other officers. They watched with varying degrees of curiosity and concern as Dr. Carter was seated at the processing desk. Thompson stood to the side, his discomfort growing. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into something much larger than they realized. "Who are you really?" Adams demanded, leaning close to Dr. Carter. "And don't give me any more of this visiting a friend nonsense." Dr. Carter met Adams' gaze evenly. "I've told you what you need to know," he said, his tone steady. "The rest will reveal itself." Before Adams could respond, a clerk hurried over, a piece of paper in hand. "Sergeant Adams," she said, her voice shaky. "You need to see this." Adams snatched the paper, his eyes scanning it quickly. His smug expression faded as the words sank in. "Department of Energy, classified clearance," he read aloud, his voice faltering. What is this?" Thompson leaned in, catching sight of the bold letters at the top of the document. His stomach dropped. "Sergeant," he whispered, "maybe we should—" "Quiet." Adams snapped, though his confidence was clearly shaken. The station's intercom crackled to life. "Sergeant Adams, report to the front desk. There are visitors asking for the detainee." Adams stormed off, his temper barely in check. Thompson stayed behind, watching Dr. Carter with growing unease. "What's happening?" he asked quietly. Dr. Carter tilted his head, his gaze softening slightly. "You're young," he said. "Do yourself a favor. Don't let your sergeant's pride ruin your career." The front door swung open and a team of federal agents entered, their presence commanding. They moved with purpose, flashing badges and heading straight for Dr. Carter. The lead agent addressed him with respect. "Dr. Carter, we're here to escort you." Adams returned, fuming. "You can't just take him." "Step aside, Sergeant," the lead agent said firmly. "This man is under federal protection." Adams hesitated, his pride clashing with the reality before him. "I don't care who he says he is," he growled. "He was acting suspicious, and that's enough for me." Dr. Carter stood, his calm never wavering. "This was never about suspicion, Sergeant," he said quietly. "It was about your prejudice." The agents led Dr. Carter out, leaving Adams and the other officers in stunned silence. Thompson slumped into a chair, his mind racing. He had a sinking feeling that they had crossed a line, and the consequences were only beginning. In the dimly lit locker room, Thompson sat alone, the weight of the day pressing on him. He realized for the first time that justice wasn't about asserting power, it was about responsibility and fairness. Meanwhile, Adams sat at his desk, staring at the empty space where his badge and gun once rested. His arrogance had cost him dearly, and now he was left with the haunting question, what if I had just listened? Dr. Carter, back in the safety of his home, reflected on the day's events. Despite the injustice, he chose to focus on the potential for change. He had seen the flaws in the system but also glimpsed hope in Thompson's hesitant courage. The story of Dr. Carter became a catalyst for change, a reminder that justice begins when we confront our biases and commit to seeing people for who they truly are. It was a lesson in empathy, respect, and the power of accountability. Thank you for watching this story unfold. If you found it engaging or thought-provoking, please give the video a thumbs up and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your support helps us bring more powerful stories to life. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. We appreciate each and every one of you for being part of our community. Together, we can keep the conversation going and inspire change. See you in the next video.